Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever stopped and wondered what the wealthiest 1% of people know about money that the rest of us just completely miss? Well, according to our sources, it's actually not about how much money you make. It is entirely about how you manage it. Today we're going to explore a mathematical blueprint straight from the research called the 25-15-50-10 rule. It's a real game changer of a framework designed to help literally anyone transform their relationship with money.
To really wrap our heads around this, we first have to look at what the 1% all have in common. You see, the wealthiest people in the world are entrepreneurs who own businesses, they're investors who own assets, inheritors who own trusts, or talented folks who own incredibly rare skills. The 99%, on the other hand, they often own absolutely nothing. They're working day in and day out, but that paycheck goes entirely to just basic survival: food, shelter, water. So, here's the absolutely crucial point. If you don't own something, you are what's owned. It's this illusion of freedom trapped inside a modern paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. The whole system is basically designed to keep you waiting for that next payday with zero breathing room. But you can absolutely fight back against this cycle. And the key to breaking out is the 25-15-50-10 rule. It's a highly actionable mathematical framework that slices your income up into 4 very specific categories. By dividing your hard-earned paycheck into these precise slices, growth, stability, essentials, and rewards, you can completely rewrite the trajectory of your financial life.
Okay, so here is exactly how this strategy breaks down. First, 25% for growth. Second, 15% for stability. Third, 50% for essentials. And finally, 10% for rewards.
Let's dive into step 1, 25% for growth, making your money work for you.
Now, growth literally means buying actual assets that increase in value while you're fast asleep. And the true undeniable secret here is the staggering power of starting early. Just look at the story of Billy and Phil. Billy started investing just $200 a month when he was 20 years old. Over 40 years, he invested $96,000. Phil, on the other hand, waited until he was 30. To try and catch up, Phil invested $300 a month. So over 30 years, Phil actually put in more of his own hard-earned cash, $108,000 in total. But because of the magic of compound growth, assuming a historical 10% average annual return from the S&P 500, Phil ended up with around $678,000. And Billy? Well, Billy ended up with a staggering $1.26 million. He invested less money, but walked away with nearly $600,000 more, simply because he gave his assets the time they needed to grow.
So you might be wondering, what kind of assets should you actually buy? Well, you need to select your growth assets based on a risk-to-reward scale. Down at the lower risk foundation, you've got index funds and real estate. Next up are high-income skills, which actually yield the fastest return on investment. Higher up the risk scale, you'll find online businesses, individual stock picking, and finally, alternative moonshots like crypto or NFTs, where, let's be honest, you can make an absolute fortune or lose it all overnight. For beginners, the source material strongly recommends just sticking to the foundation: low-risk index funds and high-income skills.
But listen, picking the asset is really only half the battle. You have to invest using the right tax-advantaged accounts, otherwise you are literally just handing over thousands of dollars. If you're in the UK, a Stocks and Shares ISA lets you invest up to £20,000 a year, completely tax-free. Or a workplace pension, which is basically free money if your employer matches what you put in. Over in the US, the Roth IRA is legendary. I mean, even billionaires use it to grow their money completely tax-free. And then there's the 401k, which is the US version of a workplace pension. Utilizing these specific geographic-based tax accounts is absolutely vital.
Once that account is finally open, you want to automate your investments on payday so you never even see the money hit your checking account. A highly popular, totally data-backed method for this is the aggressive 3-fund portfolio. That is 60% in a US stock index, 30% in an international stock index, and 10% in a bond fund to provide a little stability and smooth out the market's crazy ups and downs. Just automate this, stop fiddling with it, and focus your energy on increasing your income instead.
Moving right along to Pillar 2, 15% for stability, your financial safety net.
You know, a lot of people mistakenly throw all their money into growth right away. But growth without a stability fund to protect it will eventually lead to total disaster. Our source actually shares a super relatable story here. At 18, they bought a VW Golf on a loan just to get to work. 3 months later, the engine completely blew up. Because they had zero safety net, they had to take on even more debt just to keep their job. As they put it, that car didn't just break down, it literally broke their finances and set them back a whole year. Most people don't really have a money problem, they have a stability problem. You need a 5-month baseline emergency fund that is completely non-negotiable. Now, to protect this 5-month safety net, you've got to store it correctly using 3 very strict rules. Rule number 1, it must be easy to access. You need to be able to withdraw that cash within 24 hours with no penalties when an emergency inevitably strikes. 2, zero risk. Do not put this emergency cash into stocks or crypto, because if the market happens to be down the exact day your emergency hits, you lose. And 3, it must earn. Don't let inflation just eat it alive in some dead-end checking account. Keep it tucked away in a high-yield savings account, earning around 4 to 5% interest.
I know building up 5 months of expenses sounds pretty daunting, but you can actually stack it up super fast using these 3 tactics. Tactic 1 is the paycheck sweep. Just automate that 15% directly into your stability fund the literal second you get paid. Tactic 2 is the replacement promise. If you have to dip into it for a genuine emergency, like replacing a smashed wing mirror, your very next paycheck must top it right back up. Tactic 3 is the save by spending hack. Use Roundup apps or cashback credit card rewards to funnel all those little micro savings straight into your stability fund. It adds up remarkably fast.
All right, on to Pillar 3, 50% for essentials, beating lifestyle creep. Prepare yourself for this one, because it's a shocking statistic. Over 60% of Americans earning over $100,000 a year are still living paycheck to paycheck. Why? Because they waste their money trying to look rich. Let's contrast 2 20-year-olds. One is looking rich. They're wearing designer shirts, a flashy, expensive watch, but secretly, they've got $43 in the bank and a stack of overdue credit cards. The other is being rich. They're just wearing cheap, basic clothes, but quietly sitting on thousands in investments and a fully stocked stability fund. Wealth isn't what you see. It's exactly what you don't see.
So to build true wealth, you have to be absolutely ruthless about defining your essentials, and you must cap them at 50% of your income. Essentials are strictly things that keep you alive: your rent or mortgage, groceries, utilities, basic transport, and basic clothes. That's the whole shebang. Takeout? Not essential. Those unused gym memberships? Definitely not essential. You need to shrink your 2 biggest wealth killers: housing, by renegotiating rent or maybe house hacking, and transport, by buying a reliable used car instead of leasing a brand new one just for a monthly status hit.
Now, let's be real. Willpower completely vanishes when you're tired or stressed out. The 1%? They don't rely on willpower. They build systems. Enter the 7-day rule framework. Before you buy anything, ask yourself, is this an impulse purchase? Well, if yes, pause for 7 days. If you still actually want it a week later, ask, am I buying this for the brand logo or the actual value? And finally, will this actually improve my life? This logical little system completely eliminates ego-driven impulse buying.
And when we talk about choosing value over brand, we really need to look at the math of cost per wear. If you buy a $60 pair of boots and wear them 100 times, that is just 60 cents per wear. That's incredible value. But if you drop $200 on designer trainers just for the logo and only wear them twice, that is $100 per wear. The 1% do not just throw their money at brand marketing, they calculate true value and chase quality every time.
And finally, we reach the 4th pillar, 10% for rewards, the joy jar.
Listen, sustainable wealth building absolutely requires guilt-free fun. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. Here's a critical fact from the research. 92% of people overspend after intensive saving sprints. Why does that happen? Because saving without any joy very quickly starts to feel like a punishment. If your financial diet is too restrictive, you will eventually rebel and experience a massive financial relapse. This 10% isn't an excuse to be reckless. It's a calculated strategy to make sure your financial discipline is actually sustainable over the long haul.
But you want to extract the maximum possible value from this 10% by prioritizing strategic rewards. Spend it on vacations to buy incredible memories, and honestly, to protect your health. Our source actually ignored vacations early on and ended up hospitalized with stress-induced shingles. No way you want that. Spend it on hobbies to keep your passion alive. Spend it on experiences, dinners, and concerts to build a strong social network. And spend it on gifts to strengthen your connections with the people you love. It's really all about investing in what you will genuinely remember. So how do we actually manage this? You set up what we call the joy jar. This is a completely separate, preloaded bank account. You automate 10% of your paycheck into this joy jar every single month. It gives you the full permission to say yes to your friends without feeling an ounce of guilt. But there is one absolute rule here. Once that joy jar hits 0, you wait until next month. No cheating allowed. You cannot top it up from your growth, your stability, or your essentials funds. This 25-15-50-10 rule is so powerful because it actively transforms what you earn into what you own.
It pulls you right out of the vulnerable 99% and shifts you into the ownership mindset of the 1%. You now have the exact blueprint to grow wealth, protect yourself with stability, keep your core essentials in check, and still actually enjoy the ride. So, the only question left for us today is, what exactly will you do with your very next paycheck? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.